You are now listening to the IELTS podcast.
Hello there, podcast listeners. Just a quick introduction this time. This podcast is from Julia. She shared some advice on academic task 1 a few months ago, and later she shared advice on how she prepared for exams when she was a student, and she's done them all. She's done the first, the Cambridge exams. She's done the first, the proficiency, advanced, all of them. And she even did the CELTA, then Delta, which is for teaching English afterwards. So she offers some advice about how to get ideas for essay writing, how to improve your essay writing, and how to make sure you're on track for writing what the examiner wants. This is a great episode, so listen tight and hope you enjoy it. What other advice would you give for task 1?
Well, what I personally, as a student, because I have taken Cambridge exams myself, I haven't taken IELTS, but I have prepared, taken and passed successfully the FCE, CAE and CPE exams. And as a student, I find working with the sample essays or sample graph descriptions very useful. I obviously mean good samples, but sometimes as a teacher, I also bring the not so good samples to class and make sure that my students mark them as examiners and they can actually see what's missing, or they can explain why they have given it a lower band, and so on and so forth. So they are all available in the what's it called, the thing that you can download from IELTS.org. It's for students and for teachers.
Yes.
The handbook for students and the handbook for teachers.
Yes.
If you are a student, don't worry, you can download the handbook for teachers, and actually it is a good idea to download this handbook because it will show you different options of writing samples, and it will actually tell you which band this sample scored, and it will give you the examiner's comments why it scored this band. So as a student, I find it very reassuring, when I know exactly what I'm going to be marked upon. So with task 1 in academic IELTS, a lot of formulaic expressions can be picked up from good sample writings, and some phrases that could be useful for any description, be it a line graph or a diagram or a process. Some structures that, compare, structures that contrast, structures that present general information, structures that present specific information. So if you have a good bank of those at your disposal, I feel that this task is actually very easy. You just need to change the keywords, whether you're talking about televisions or whether you're talking about online courses or whether you're talking about, I don't know, the number of babies that families have, and, but everything else, you've got a skeleton and you just need to put some, meat and flesh on it.
Excellent point there, Julia. And just one question. So when you went to Google, obviously you put in IELTS sample essays and you downloaded them, because on the IELTS podcast there's, I don't know, I think I've got about 10 or 20 essays up there, but they're all band, they're all task 2, not band 2. They're all probably about band 9, because it's all perfect English. However, when you used the sample essays, did you have a process, or did you just go through, underline useful phrases? How did you use them?
Well, as a student, I would first attempt the task myself, so time myself, like have an alarm clock which will ring in 20 minutes and, sit down, write as if it is an exam, and then have a look at the same task done by somebody else, their example, compare what's better, what's worse, and only then have a look at what band it actually got, and only then have a look at why the examiner gave this writing this band. So it's not only choosing the useful phrases, but it's seeing what's wrong. For me, it's very important to understand why I'm not getting band 7 or whatever. What's wrong with it? So if you have an explanation that the choice of language isn't challenging enough, or this whatever data is missing, or it's just too long, exceeds word limit, and so on and so forth, then again with the Russians is a very common point. They think that if they write more, they're going to impress the examiner by the quantity. And I'm like, that's not true. That's so not true. I mean, sometimes it's easier to write more than to write less, because to write less, you have to be able to analyze and summarize. But to write more, you can just start from the very beginning and gradually, as I said, in 3 pages, come to the end. But you don't have so much paper and you don't have so much time.
Excellent. Yeah, that's true. It's with the selection, isn't it? And the choosing the correct data, being selective. But I like the method you used of you would attempt the same task.
Yeah, it's important because if you can't compare, then I've done some task, but it doesn't show me anything. But if I'm doing the same task which I've got a sample of, then I can compare them, and sometimes, the first one is terrible, and then you think, okay, my weak point is, let's say, linkers. So I'm going, after I've done this first attempt, I'm going to study some linkers, and the second time I do a different task, I'm going to make sure that my linkers are perfect or close to perfect. So you've battled one of your troubles, then you compare the second one and read the examiner's comments, and you realize that you are lacking, I don't know, passive voice. Then, okay, you've done the linkers already, so you study some passive voice and you attempt the third one already, equipped with a good selection of linkers, with a good variety of passive voice construction. So there isn't a lot to worry about when you're doing the third one. So then it just becomes a matter of, choosing what's relevant for this particular picture.
I see. Great advice. And do you have any more advice from your days as a student when you were doing these exams?
Well, I find it, as a student myself and seeing it in students now that I'm a teacher, it's not like when you get to know the exam and when you get to know the grading criteria and you know what's expected, you become quite good at, those fixed expressions and semi-fixed phrases and so on and so forth. So it's not actually that difficult, but what you do find difficult is getting ideas. Okay, it's not the picture description because all the information is in front of you. It's not that long to begin with, but other parts of the exam, speaking or the task 2 writing, where you do need to state a personal opinion, and you do need to come up with quite a lot of details to write about. So what's important is that you it's not only the how to write it that you've mastered, but also you don't get held back by not knowing what to write, or what to say. So to have, this ability to generate ideas, you basically need to make sure that your brain's occupied.
Yes. Yeah.
And yes, a lot of the time the samples help. So it's not only writing samples. Now again, on the internet, there are lots of examples of speaking, the candidates actually taking the speaking test, or, other parts of the exam. So you could listen to those, or you can read those, and you can compare them with yourself and draw some conclusions. But the ideas bit, where what am I writing about, or what am I going to speak about, me myself, I can't remember doing it. I can't say that I actually was sitting and doing it myself at home, but as a teacher, I do it quite often, either at the beginning of the lesson or at the end of the lesson, or if the lesson is very long, like 3 hours or 4 hours, then we could do it in the middle, because it switches the attention.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does keep the brain working. So you need to come up with a list of like most ridiculous things. I don't know. I tell my students, okay, now you need to make a list of all the food that is red.
I see.
And they have like 1 minute to write it down. And then I say, okay, now you need to categorize your food into what you buy, I don't know, in a supermarket and what you buy in a street market. Can you put them into 2 groups, or will you have 3 groups, which is, supermarket, market, or both? And then, I don't know, organize a group of red foods that could be used to make a drink. And stuff like that. So sometimes I ask my students to write about ridiculous things, like when you need to present advantages and disadvantages essay. I tell them, okay, you have to compare the color green and the color blue. Which one is better? Present your arguments. So you need to come up with something that is very puzzling and something that you don't do, in your everyday life. You don't normally go and compare why blue is better than green. But if you stop and think about it, you will. And again, I say, no one is going to, actually talk to you after the exam or chase you down or call you or whatever to actually find out whether or not your favorite color is blue. So you have to be able to think on the spot and make up the necessary information if it's lacking. So you can say blue is better because it's the color of the sky, and the sky provides us with the weather. And if there was no weather, then people wouldn't know which season it was outside. And, it doesn't matter which reasons you give. But if you train yourself into being able to compare anything or come up with any list, or try the odd one out. Okay, you have a list of red foods. Choose one of these foods which doesn't belong to this list and give me the reason why. So
now, I was just going to say that's a great advice. It develops the ability to think on your feet and to think faster. A piece of advice I tell my students is just to fill their head with information, because a lot of the time you might get a question related to the society, to the crime, to politics. And if you're regularly reading information about this from the BBC, from the Guardian, or wherever, in English, of course, you're acquiring the vocab, but you're also getting ideas and you're forming opinions, which you can just pull quick from your memory, so you don't have to be thinking about ideas. You can be thinking about your writing.
Exactly. And what we do about this when, I'm not an expert in economics, so how am I to answer this question about society? So what we do is we come up with this spidergram where we have life in the middle, and I'm like, okay, tell me all aspects of people's life. Yeah, so they come up with family, other people, environment, economics, politics, psychology, religion, anything. And then I'm like, okay, so look at the spidergram and make sure that you have anything to say, at least something, about each of these things, yeah, about environment. What do you have to say? Yeah, maybe you don't know the particulars, but you know that it's worse than it was 50 years ago. You know that something, the government is doing something about it. So basically, if you don't know, go and research. That's your homework. You can use Google. I mean, sometimes I find that, if a 15-year-old teenager is taking IELTS, well, they don't really have these ideas in their own language, let alone in a second or a foreign language. So sometimes it's useful to give them these research tasks. And for adults as well, I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit that I know nothing and I understand nothing in politics. I'm it's not my thing. But if I were to take an academic module of the IELTS exam, I know that in the speaking part, in part 3, where you are asked more abstract questions, there could be something. Obviously, they won't ask me, who I'm going to vote in the next election for, but something related to politics. So I would probably make sure that I know at least, I don't know, what's in the news at the moment, or whether or not I agree with the, I don't know, the measures that the government is taking at the moment or whatever. So, and again, if you don't agree or if you don't know, just say something. Because, as I say, the examiner is not going to check afterwards. And even if you say, yes, everything that my government is doing at the moment is perfect, fine. They're not going to, deduct marks because they think that it's not perfect.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, like you said, if you do the research before, if you know that you know nothing about economics, or you might not know anything about biology or something like that, or the sciences. Or I had one girl, she hated technology. She hated it, everything. And I was like, Maria, you've got to just brush up a bit, you need to get your head down. I know you don't like it.
If you just think about it as a temporary measure, because you need to take this exam, get this band, and then do whatever your intentions were, like get into the university or get this job or get to live in a different country because you got a visa. And then you can forget about your technology and go and celebrate. But at the moment, these are the sacrifices that you have to make. You have to probably know something about subjects that are not very interesting.
Excellent point. Okay then, Julia. Then if the student wanted to get in contact with you, first of all, you're doing Skype classes, aren't you?
Yes, so I can give my Skype account is Julie Ivanes. That's JULI _ IVANES. So you could just require to add me to your contact list and say that you are interested in IELTS preparation, and then we'll take it from there and talk about days and times and lengths of sessions and prices and whatever else is involved. You could also write me an email, and we'll see if, for example, some people only need guidance with writing. In that case, a Skype session wouldn't be so helpful because they could just, email me their essays or draft descriptions or, depending on which IELTS mode they are preparing for. And I could email back the comments and stuff like that. So for that kind of preparation, you could send me an email. And again, it's julievanes@gmail.com. So JULI .IVANES @gmail.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. And you are teaching, you are accepting students at the moment? Yeah?
Yes, I am. And
Excellent.
I mean, if you are only thinking about IELTS in the distant future, say you know that you're going to apply for a visa in 5 years' time when your children are old enough to move to a new country,
Mm-hmm.
then you probably are interested in some general English if your level is quite low at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not only doing IELTS preparation, so if you need to brush up your generally English because at some point in the future you are taking an IELTS exam or any other exam, TOEFL, Cambridge, whatever, you could also contact me at the above addresses and we'll see if we can help each other.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. Yeah. So it's exam preparation and general English.
General
And
English.
you also help out via email if it's for the
If
writing
it's writing essays, yes. Or not only essays, just writing sections of various exams or, again, writing in general if, you know, you're struggling with your job because it involves writing emails to overseas colleagues and they have to be in English and they have to be polite and they have to be, you know, to the point, then
Mhm.
you're welcome as well. It's not only for exam candidates.
Okay. All right then. Well, thank you very much, Julia. It's been an awesome interview.
Thank you.
Thank
And I wish everyone luck with their exam preparation.
Okay, yeah, me too. Me too, of course. Okay then. All right. All right, I'll stop.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com. And remember to leave your email for updates and early access to new podcasts.